We will post the link to the recording and the slide deck on the webinar page of our website as soon as it's available. I will post the link at the end of the webinar for you all to access later this afternoon. To ensure a high quality recording, all attendees are encouraged to mute your mic. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. We will get to them if time allows. Finally, I'd like to take a minute here to introduce our presenter. Terry is a senior consultant and instructor at CPS HR Consulting. She has headed her own consulting company, TV Enterprises, since 1998. Terry is a former public official who recognizes the complexities of government agencies. Additionally, she is the published author of Emerging a Leader One Step at a Time. Now, without further ado, Terry, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Marissa. And you hung in there with that sore throat, so good for you. You sounded fine. So welcome, everybody. Good to see so many people interested in this topic. If you have a camera and you're willing to do so, it's always so much better and such a leader thing to do to turn it on. So I don't have to introduce myself because Marissa did a great job. And I always appreciate the cameras on, by the way. I know we don't like them, but we really should start getting used to them by now. So we're going to look at a blueprint for change. If you hadn't noticed, we've had some changes. Like a radio person once said, what a difference a pandemic makes. I mean, it just was changed everything, right? But in some ways, it just pushed us into a place where we were headed anyway in terms of technology and working from home and all the good things that we're learning to do independently, autonomously, and and still connecting and collaborating with others. So we're going to look at what you need to do as a leader, because if you're a leadership role, you kind of have to have a blueprint. Most leaders are, frankly, they have such a legend to live up to. They're supposed to be initiative, and they have compassion, and they're charismatic, and they're out in front, and all this stuff. But it's hard to reach that in today's workplace. People have an ideal of, well, you're the leader, you should be doing this. Leadership is difficult. It's always been a little tricky. And so where we are now is what worked yesterday may not work today. So you can't just say, oh, they did it in the past. I have a book right there on my shelf that said, what got you here won't get you there. It's a good book. It says, don't sit on your laurels here too much. Some say leaders are born, they're just born that way, but they're not made, they're just born that way. Others suggest the opposite, they're made, not born. In my opinion, I think leaders just emerge. Something happens and they step forth and they step in, a situation arises and they say, you know what, I feel like I need to act here. And they do. And you don't have to have the role, the title, you don't have to have the rank. If something comes up, act. And we found in a horrific way that some people who have the leadership role, even if they don't get the okay from above them, they don't act. And we had the shootings in Uvalde, January 6th, people were waiting for the chain of command. And, it was disastrous. So someone should have acted anyway. I don't have permission, but I have to. People are getting shot. It was awful. So we don't need to go that far. But there is a way that you can start seeing things if you pay attention to what's going on. And I think what happens to us is we get into this, work mode. I have work to do. I haven't got time to think about big things. I have work mode to do. I sit down and I manage people and I do stuff at the computer and so forth. But in fact, that is the role of the leader. And for you to look at trends, to do some sort of watch things, read things, find out what's going on so that you're ready, so that you could have a vision. There's no manual, there's no consistent process for doing this, but we could have a blueprint, and that's what we're doing today, a bigger picture of how things may unfold. So you need to kind of keep those in mind as you go through and become the better leader that you are. So here's a great quote about leadership. I'll just let you read it. Well, I should if it's recording. Becoming a leader is synonymous with becoming yourself. It's precisely that simple, and it's also that difficult. So you kind of know in your heart of hearts who you are, and that's why the person who acts, because they know it's the right thing to do. And that's from Warren Bennis, who wrote on Becoming a Leader, a nice book. So what, obviously we've gone through some changes, and change is not something that will, gee, it was a lot of change going on and wish things would settle down. I don't think it's going to stop because of technology more than anything, because we have so much information and it's flowing and it's constantly moving. And so change is like part of what we're doing. It is becoming more normal to see a lot of changes. So when change happens, this gentleman is, going between two sides of a canyon. On one side, there's the status quo, there's the predictability. I know what I'm doing. I know where my cubicle is. I have certainty that I could, so-and-so sitting next to me. I have routine that I do every day the same, but it's the same old in a way. And it's reliable. And we've been doing it for years. And then change happens. Just, whoa, what was that? It was different. It's scary. This isn't the same. It's disordered. It's chaotic. And it's also a little exciting because there's opportunity in change. Wherever there's a problem, there's an opportunity for change. So that's where we are. And we're changing again, for those who are going back to the workforce in a hybrid situation. Everyone's all over the place. So it's tricky for me to just speak to one particular format because there's so many different ways. Some people are fully remote. Some people are all back to work at the workplace. Some people are both. So change is here to stay. We have it. But without it, we grow kind of stale. We've become past tense. Something I always worry about as a trainer. I want to make sure I'm on top of things. Change means letting go of the way it was. That's just a useless activity, mental or physical. Doubt, resistance, and uncertainty can occur, yes. But the organizations and the leaders who handle the change process well tend to reduce the time required for similar changes in the future. So when you confront the change, or when you're aware of the change and you're aware what people might be going through as a leader, you can manage it better. And then the next time it's smoother. And so you're there and you've kind of figured it out. You've understood the blueprint is created and you can work with it. And now with people changing back to the workplace, it's huge opportunity to make changes that are positive in the place of work, so that isn't all same old. So we have a more dynamic, productive, and frankly, more engaged workforce. That is the opportunity that's hitting us right this minute, probably better than any other time in history of work, is that this change, go home, everybody on, without any question. Now some of you come back and we're going to basically recreate the workplace. However you organize it, it's going to be different. And so you have a great opportunity to say, let's do this, let's remodel it better. So there's kind of changes that sometimes are just simple technology changes, who you report to, different boss, whatever. And then there's major change, such as a reorganization or a crisis. And they result in the change in the culture of the organization. And as the culture changes, it's a major shift in the way work gets done. Culture is the interaction, how we've learned behavior about how to interact with one another. That's culture. Learned behavior about how we interact with one another. And if the culture changes, then it's a shift in the way work gets done and the way we interact. And so that's the other thing that's changing, and to be aware of it. How are we changing? As a leader, you want to look at that. So everyone, you probably heard these phases of changes, and they're all over the place. I mean, people have different examples, but this is pretty much the standard. There's first phase of a change. When the change happens, is resistance. I don't want to do this. I don't know. I'm not going to stop. When CPS said in the pandemic, CPS wisely said, we're going to start doing webinars immediately. And they did 1 and 2 hour little webinars for people that were struggling with the idea of working from home. And I said, I can't, I'm not that way. I don't train that way. I'm in front of people. I'm standing up. I've been, all my education and training and research has been about how people learn from real life in person. No, I'm not going to do it. Well, look, here I am. So I resisted, but then I started seeing it, and now I really like it. I think it's got more options. Illusion. We have then the illusion of it's going to be fine. It's going to change back. It's going to be different. It's going to be awful. We have we don't know. It's all it's all conjecture. And then there's exploration and chaos. How are we going to do this? Wait, this doesn't work. Some people can't come in on Tuesdays. How are we ever going to have a meeting? Da, da, da. It's all this kind of chaotic. What do we do now? Should we do this? Should we do that? And then things kind of settle down. There's a planning and commitment phase. Okay, this is where it orders up a little bit and say, okay, so this is how we're going to do it. I think it'll be better this way. Again, a role of a leader comes in really strongly here with, why don't we try this? And then people come into a motivation and achievement. You know, I feel like we did this. We're in a better place than we were before. We like it, just like me with the online training. Now I like it. I like it a lot. And never thought I'd say that, never. So it happens. It happens to everybody in different places. So with resistance, people are defensive. They don't tell me to change. They get angry, they get frustrated, they get confused. Look at all the confusion and anger we had with vaccinations and masks and all that. They're scared, basically. People are scared in a resistance phase. They may feel like they're betrayed. This is not what I signed up for. And they're afraid to take risks or try new things. It's just, I want to stay holding on because I don't like this. And you have to know people that go through this, they're afraid. They're angry, frustrated. They're not in the positive emotion status at all. They need to be handheld. They push back sometimes. They rebel. They refuse. Again, the reference of the sample of the vaccinations. Productivity dips and people are in resistance. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. Morale and engagement suffer, and they try to stand up and say, we'll just withhold the storm. Just try to block it. You know, don't come my way. I'm not doing this storm. I'm not doing this change. And they stand erect, hoping to, you know, gun it out, I guess. But then look how big the storm got. You know, it's like, can't happen. You know, you'll be knocked over. This is a storm cloud. This is Katrina, by the way, just so you know what those look like. That's kind of like what we had recently. So standing rigid in a storm causes people to fall down, knocked down. Laying low, hoping it'll blow over, that'll leave you behind. It'll blow over and you'll be still lying on the ground. But embracing change means learning to work in the rain. So it's pouring down rain with this storm and you need to figure out how to work in it. And that's when you have to have some character and you have to understand that this is for your own good and for the good of the world or whatever it is. Hold on to your team, hold on to your purpose. And as a leader, you want to reinforce all that for people. But don't worry, it'll be all right, but just hang in there, just learn how to work with it. Learn how to work with it. Sorry. So by the way, anytime you have a question or comment, I'm open to hearing it. Just unmute or chat it in. So just so you know. And we'll get to you in just a moment with some questions. So illusion is the next one. And that's where I think we can make this work. It's going to be fine. It's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be, so listen to how we talk to ourselves. And guess what? We get what we talk to ourselves about. I think I can make it work. Okay, then you will. It's going to be a nightmare. I have a girlfriend that used to say that all the time. Oh, they're coming to my house today to fix this. It's going to be a nightmare. Okay, if it is, sure enough, later, oh, it was a nightmare. Amazing what we do to our brains. So let's ask you this. This is a picture. What do you see in this picture? We're going to look at perspective here. What are you seeing in this picture?
I see several different things. I see an elderly woman and elderly man looking at each other. Mm-hmm. I see two people wearing sombreros and playing guitar.
Okay, thank you. Do you see anything else?
I see a bottle of tequila on the side.
Oh, Alfred. How do you know it's tequila?
Oh, I'm in trouble.
It was sombreros, right?
Definitely what?
There's also
a house.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I said he was coping in some tequila.
I can't hear you, Nancy. Somebody's got a lawnmower going with you. Okay, mute yourself. Nancy, I know your name too. So yeah, so you see all these different things. Did anybody see the monkeys? kidding, there aren't any monkeys. But I just threw you there. So this is perspective. People see things differently. And how perspective is it's something I do in coaching a lot. It's if you have a perspective that doesn't serve you very well, like it's going to be a nightmare. Okay, whoever that is that Mercy? For some reason, there's chatter in the microphone. Yeah. So when you change your perspective, you can change this. This is going to be a nightmare. It's not working for me because it ends up being a nightmare. But I can change my perspective. Is this going to be different? This is going to be interesting. And it's a different perspective. It may have the same result, but you feel better about it. So perspective is a point of view. This is how I see things. What you think or you feel about them. Some things that we've been thinking about that we know are true no longer serve us. They don't really fit anymore. And those are the things that we need to let go. So if you have a perspective like that, what other perspective could you choose that would work better for you? So in my case, I can't do this. It's going to be awful. I don't want to do, people can't learn this way. And so I changed my perspective as it's going to be a learning process. And I'm going to find out if it works or not. I'm going to be curious. I'm not going to be resistant. I'm going to be curious. Same with you. You have that opportunity, and so do the people that you lead. So here's an example. So what other perspective could you choose from these emotional triggers? And they come from the same situation. This is not denial. This means that I feel overwhelmed. How many people feel overwhelmed all the time? Oh, I'm overwhelmed, which is not a very good feeling to have. How about challenged? I'm feeling a little challenged by all of this. It's the same thing. It just feels a little better. It feels like you're in charge of it now. Anxious. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm a little nervous about the public, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm just curious. I'm curious how this is going to turn out. I'm curious how things are going to be. Stupid. That was me. I don't know how to do these platforms. I'm stupid. I don't know what I'm doing here with all this technology. Instead, I'm learning. Same thing, just different perspective. Impatient is one feeling that you can have, or anticipating. Can't wait to see what happens next. So do you see how that perspective can change how we see change, how we look at everything that's going on? So the next phase is exploration and chaos. It has confusion. Let's try this. Oh, how about we start that? And here, this is where the leader has trouble because he or she doesn't know either sometimes. And so it's okay to say, okay, what do you think? Let's explore that. Let's just try it out. Let's do a experiment with this. They try to figure out new responsibilities. Why don't you start doing that and I'll do this because this is overlapping. Many things are in question and there's lots of energy and no focus. It's like chaos. That's a phase of the change. It's a phase. Remember, there are phases. They go away. So I'd like you to go to the polls now, if you would. And there's a poll there about change. And so when I open the poll, I want you to look at where you think your team will be spending the most energy among these these six items. Now, we haven't gotten to motivation and achievement, but you can see that's going to happen next. But right now, I want you to look at the ones we've talked about and think of the others, and where are you going to spend the most time and energy do you think your team will do? So let's do the poll. Let's do it quickly. I'm going to give you only a few seconds to do it. And I've launched it, so let's see if it's working. Okay, good. It's right on top of it. Ooh, all over the place. And there's more on what each of these means there too. Okay. All right, let's show the results. We didn't get everybody, but that's okay. So those are the results. That's, resistance wins. There's illusion about your, okay, thank you. I was looking at the chat. Illusion about the outcome, chaos under lack of direction. This is interesting. You have a lot of that in there. And of course, the other two are, when it's pretty much over. So we'll just thank you. That's good, good input to see other people doing it. So the planning and commitment phase after the chaos, there's a vision for the future. That's where the leaders come in as well. The staff needs and desires, the staff's needs and desires are taken into account. This is very important in a hybrid world because it won't work unless that happens. They will make it work. And so their needs and desires, and I'm so afraid that some government organizations are going to say, okay, well, we don't know what else to do, so you're mandated to come in 3 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever. And that just goes right against what they've been doing for the last 2.5 years. And so there's going to be a lot of resistance, I think, there. So having a plan, you need to incorporate, what do they think? People see changes beginning to take shape that way. And they say, I have a part in it. I have some decision in it. There's a sense of relief that's starting to build. We may be better off now. I'm kind of liking this. So that's the other phase. Next phase is motivation. It's really improved. I like it better. What can we do to keep it going? Yay, team. I like this. Achievement. This is a refreshing change. Some of these new ideas are great. I want to be more engaged than ever. Woohoo! This is fun, etc. But that's when you come out of the tunnel, you know, these two things. But you have to go through those other stages, I think, to get there. A lot of people do. And just so you know that it's going to happen, it's sort of helpful. And that's what a blueprint does. It's like, okay, this is, I can see that everybody's in a chaotic state right now. Let's figure out how to get to planning real quick. So problem and changes, I alluded to earlier, are always connected. They're always related to change. Problems are related to change and vice versa. You have a problem, then you make a change, or you have a change, and then it becomes a problem. They all are, they're like cousins. They're like teeter-totters. But with each of them, there's opportunity. There's a problem, there's an opportunity to make it different. There's a change, there's an opportunity to change for the better. You have those, you always have those. And if things happen, if you have a problem, which is a really dense word, what's our opportunity here? What, you know, we don't want to just fix the one thing that's wrong. We want to look at the whole thing and say, you know, maybe there's an opportunity to revamp how we're doing this. So the problem was a deadly virus. Opportunity, the change, let's go home and work. Problem was, I miss my colleagues. I miss the equipment. I want my monitor. Where's my printer? Yes, I heard this for 2.5 years. Change, okay, connect through technology, have meetings. And the problem was, well, we kind of lack that synergy, which is still probably true, where people get together and their ideas kind of build and build until they get something even better. So, okay, then the opportunity is to transition back to the office where you can do that. But how is the next question. So the transition can be handled in a lot of different ways. And I think people are grappling with that. But it has to be different because, as Time Magazine said, for many, too much has changed to go back to the past. It's just too hard. So here's an idea. Some places they've said, okay, welcome back. That was weird. Okay, everybody back to work. And there was never an opportunity for staff to share their experiences or what they learned or lessons learned. So my suggestion is that you set up a series of meetings, just what we need more meetings, right? But it's a transition team or focus groups. If you want to do that, send out surveys. Make it a focus group. What did you learn? What do you think we could change? And I've got some questions here you can look at. Use open-ended questions, discovering how people are feeling and what needs or desires they have. How was that for you? What insights did you have from there? What ideas do you have to change things for the better here? Those kinds of questions. What would make your life better? What worked, what didn't work? And you gather those lessons learned and identify, okay, there's an opportunity here. There's so much energy on that one area or whatever it is. Let's make these improvements. Let's change. And one of the things, as we'll talk about in a minute, is people have a sense of autonomy and flexibility when they were working from home. And that's been what's driven a lot of the productivity. People were 35% more productive working from home. That's pretty significant. I didn't know it was going to be that high if I was 15, 20. And according to a couple of polls, it was more than that. So here's some of the questions to ask people. What worked for you? And, you know, what did you like? What worked? And what could we eliminate or streamline? Did you discover? A lot of people discovered that they could streamline or eliminate a lot of things. They were putting all their paperwork online, and that made everything a lot smoother and so forth. And the public was responding well. That was the other thing people learned. The public got it. They understood. They didn't have to go into your building. What changes are needed or desired? What do you think needs to happen? That's a big question. What made us more productive? Why were you 35% more productive? And how can we maintain that? How can we keep that up? And where and how can we improve morale and increase engagement? Employee engagement has been low for a long time, below 50%. And that's including, I think CalHR did a survey not too long ago, that people's engagement in work, meaning they didn't really feel like they took ownership of their job, they just did it. And that to me is a waste of talent. I mean, it's sad, it makes me sad. I'm just waiting for retirement. I only have 5 more years. You know how long that is? It's a long time to do nothing. So what other questions could you ask staff as they migrate back to work? As a leader, what would you like to know as people migrate back to the workplace? Let's hear from you. Who have we got here? Oh, we're chatting in, okay. Where are we able to sustain that? Where were we able to sustain that 35% increase? I don't know that, Rick. I think that's what you're talking about. The other idea to have a consultant who has the expertise with working groups. I'm fine with that. Your perspective so often affects your approaches. Sometimes I have to be very mindful of. Yes, exactly. Okay, what else? What other questions might you have to ask your staff? Just shout them out if you want.
Well, in my department, we've actually decided to go with a hybrid, and we're allowing people to choose. If they want to come into the office at least 50% of the time, then they keep their workspaces. If they want to telework 49% of the time or more, then they give up their workspaces and they'll be using Robin Return to reserve a workspace.
Robin Return, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's what it's called. It's Robin Return. And then there'll be a lot of hotel space that people can go to. So one of the things that I've been asking my staff as they're making the decision on what they want to do is, how do you feel about it? I personally, I think my staff has been a lot happier working at home, and I would just assume them remain there. In management, I have to come in at least 1 day a week because our commissioners, they want the managers in the office at least 1 day a week together. But some of the questions I've been asking is, if you stayed home, how much are you relying on technology? How can we put more documents into our system electronically so that we don't have to pass documents around? And that's something that has been, there was a lot of resistance at first in 2020, but now almost my whole program is electronic. So, and they're feeling comfortable with it. So that's kind of where we are, is that they have a choice. I don't have to make them do it, and I'm glad.
I like that. Cordell, what's your agency?
Yes. Oh, can you hear me okay?
No, Cordell, what's your agency? I'm just
curious. Yes, my agency is I'm representing an advocate for the city of Richmond, and I get a lot of feedback from some of the city departments, and they're saying that they prefer to come in there, like 3 days a week, because it's like 3 days in the workplace and 3 days in the office, and then the other 2 days telework from home. So that was my thought in my mind. So that's it.
I don't know. I can't see who's talking. So, okay. Thank you, though.
That was me.
Yeah. Oh, you're what? Alfred?
No, that wasn't me. I know she was referring to Cordell because the hand was up, but unfortunately the screen doesn't pop up when the active mic is on, so I don't know who is talking.
I don't know either.
I work in Department of State Hospitals,
Okay.
and there are a lot of employees here who did not have the option to telework, provided that we are a level of care for patients. So there was lots of concerns during the pandemic with changes, PPE, social distancing, um, and lack of engagement with staff, and just complying with those changes. Some people thought it was very necessary for the mask, and other people didn't have or did not share that same investment. So it brought about some tensions on the in the workplace. There were some departments that were available for teleworking, but not my department.
So that's part of the chaos too. There's some people who were really paranoid about the virus, and so they needed masks and a distance around their desk, and other people, they were casual. And that's still another issue that goes on. Okay, some other questions. Have a consultant come into the focus group, so we already did that. What is your ideal work model going forward, Ronell says. That's good. Why ask what days they prefer to be on site? Yeah, it might be helpful to have everybody on site on one day that's the same. But people have arranged schedules with their mother who's sick, or their babies, or children, spouses who work from home. Also, everybody's worked out a plan for themselves. And okay, what are your biggest concerns with returning to work in person? That's good to find out, Jenna. Thank you. All these things. We are requiring staff to return to the office 20 hours per week, but we are allowing this flexibility to choose what days to be in the office and whether they spend whole days or partial days in the office. Okay, so you guys are doing well there. Our sections were teleworking 4 days a week and go off to the office one day. And so somebody sometimes arbitrarily says 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and it's not necessarily based in science. But as I said, I think even managers way at the top, they're not sure. So this is new, it's all new. And my guess is it's going to change again as people adapt and start working things out. Employees have the option to a hybrid or at least 50% in the office. Okay, so everybody's got a different way of doing things. And it's just something to know, but also giving you options, what might work. And I think you can't do that unless you find out from the people that are actually providing the service and doing the work. So a hybrid culture, as we know, encompasses both virtual and on-site employees, and they have to learn to work together, not always together. It has to be, communication has to occur regularly among disparate groups, meaning we have to keep in touch, make sure everybody's on the same page. I'm at the office and, oh, I guess it's his day to be at home. So I've got to communicate. We're going to have to get used to it. Very slowly. Okay, let me see. It was a long one. We have a max 50% remote. We based it on classification. Okay, there's a lot more. Our public safety department. I can't read all this. Employee have been working in the office since May or June 2020. No work from home. They don't have that experience. Okay, so I'm going to have to leave the chest. It's all going to be there, and you'll get it as Marissa said at the end of this session. So the other thing to happen, and this is again the role of the leader, the purpose and the vision and the values are consistent over both groups. So let's make sure our culture stays the same. We still are in the business of providing this service. City of Richmond, whatever it is, we're doing this. And do it the same for each person, the purpose. This is why we're doing it. This is our vision of how we see things. This is the improvements we are all going to work to achieve. So you want to make sure people are understanding that. So some of the models, as we've talked about, are 2 days, 3 days, all offsite, all virtual. And then is Cordell. Employees choose where they work depending on the task or the need. Now there's another thing to consider. Some people, their work, like I talked to one woman who's an IT person, manager of an IT, and they don't come at all. And there was another person that said they sold the building, so we don't have to, there's no place for us to go if we wanted to. So that kind of answers that question, right? And they don't have to, the task they do doesn't need to be involved with stuff. Others, like you've mentioned, safety, hospitals, things like that, public safety, have to do that. And I think the strange thing for me, having been in city government myself and government in general myself, is that the public really responded well. There's no reason we pay their salaries, where are they? They're not at work. They're still getting their needs met. And I think that's to our credit, pound yourself on the shoulder there. So how do you create a culture that's a hybrid culture? You need to look at the staffing, who can work from home and who can't. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Planning it out is important. And that you're struggling with that still, I can still see from the comments, you're trying this out. We were required to do this. We're mandated to do that. That may or may not work, but you can, plan it differently. You have an option to change it. The purpose, of values, and the trust needs to be reinforced at all levels. People need to be trained and coached. A lot of people aren't necessarily that good at technology. Other people are not used to communicating in different ways. There has to be some coaching to people that are having trouble getting back to work or staying at home. What's happening with your folks? And inclusion, make sure everybody is included in not only the culture, but in the decision-making if possible. I know there's sometimes a lot of people, but there are ways to do that, again, especially with technology. So some of the ways to do staffing is you look at the content of the job. Is it IT, or is it interaction with public, or is it meetings? What is it? What are the tasks? What do they do? How well are they doing them? That's the other thing to ask when you're talking about staffing people. How well are they doing these? What training do they need? And there's an opportunity again to take a look at it differently. Do you need some training? How experienced are they? Are they good at their jobs without a lot of supervision? Can they just do it because they know how to do it? And what tasks can be virtual for them? So sometimes you can do this analysis, analyze the task percentage, blah, 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 determine what can be accomplished, the percentage of the job that can be on site, blah, blah, blah. And then the other option is to do a pilot. And I'm hoping that that's what some of you have the perspective of what you're doing. Set up temporary schedules to see how they work. Right now we're doing that. And a lot of you have the chats, well, for now we're doing this. And right now we're doing that. So this could be a pilot, could be like we're trying this. And then the open choice, people select where they prefer to work. And I think what we have to just admit is that people do know how to work. They do know how they are, what kind of a worker they are. And if we assume that's going to be true going forward, then you really can kind of let go and have people have this open choice, because they have shown that they, continue to work. Now, if you take the perspective that people are going to slack off as soon as you give them that option, everybody's going to just bail on you, then it won't work. Then you can't do that. But it's that, my guess is that may not be the perspective that serves you. People like to be productive. They do. They like job satisfaction, frankly, over salary. Hard to say that, but it's true. So the other thing is the psychological and behavioral aspects. What's their life story right now? Are they self-motivated? Do they know how to do this? Are they disciplined? Are you disciplined, self-directed? I know how to do this. I don't need someone to tell me, and I'm going to do it because it's on my list to do. Do they have flexibility? Can they say, okay, well, from now on, I'm going to work partly at home and blah, blah, blah. Can they do that? Can they stop what they're doing and have a meeting? Can they adapt to new situations? These are all just psychological things to look at people, the people you work with. Are they innovative? Do they come up with new things and new ideas? And do you trust them? That's the thing we just mentioned. Can you trust them to get the job done? Or do you have to assume they're slacking off? I think that assumption is old. It's an industrial revolution kind of assumption. We have to beat them to make them work. I don't think that's been true for a long time, but that's my opinion. I have to say that's my opinion. So as far as coming back, people are used to working from home, and some of them, are reluctant to do it, to come back. They've adapted. They've figured it out. They say a habit can be changed in 20 days. We've had 2.5 years. So they've adapted. Some people are concerned about safety. I still don't trust this virus. I don't want to be around a lot of people. They have anxiety in crowds and in socializing. When I'm around too many people in a crowded, and go to galleries, sometimes gallery openings, it is too many people there. I gotta go. Draining commutes. Anybody want to commute again? That's long, involved commutes. sitting in the car for hours, taking that much of time of your life. Sometimes it's not necessary. And then the biggest reason I think is that people feel that sense of flexibility and freedom that they had working from home. Doesn't mean they didn't do the work. It just means that they had more of a, like a business of their own. You know, they could sit down today, I'm going to work very hard on this, and I'm going to shut down my phone, or I'm going to tell the kids to go away. I mean, you have that flexibility and that freedom working from home. You've been free range employees. That's what they've been. It's like we're not caged in anymore. So, you know, it's just how do you corral people again after that? So what challenges were your particular team face? What were challenges your team faced to keep employees engaged as they return to the workplace? What could you do to say, you know, come back to the workplace, you're going to like it even better or whatever? Just ideas on that. What challenges will your team, and maybe think of yourself as a leader here, will they face as to keep them, you know, to keep people engaged? How can we do that? What can we do for each other? What can we do to keep people more engaged as they return to work? Because a lot of you have said in your chats, we're doing this, we're 3 days a week, some of we get to choose, whatever. But what about how they feel about their jobs, how they are engaged in the workplace? What can you do to sort of take those things that they particularly liked, you know, before, and see if we can recreate them? It's an opportunity. Flexible schedules to allow for childcare and appointment. Good, Allison, that's perfect. That's the kind of thing I'm looking at. Yeah, be flexible with them. I have a mother who's ailing. I need to have this day to do it, to take her to whatever. So work that up, work that. Flexible schedules, what, you know, we can do that. We have the power. What else can you do? As leaders, what would you suggest?
I can answer that, Terry.
Okay, thank you.
So I speak for the other teams in Richmond, and so one of the things that comes across is like, you know, if an employee will say, I was wondering, okay, let me put it another way. I have to pick up my child, you know, at this time, so I was wondering if I can leave an early. So sometimes sometimes managers will say, oh, sure, you can like pick up your child. That's pretty much simple.
Yeah, but some people, in the past, we pretended to be sick just to get those things done. All right, so many of my staff have chosen to work from home exclusively and voice their desire to continue. Well, that, I guess, is flexible if you say okay. Make the work environment more appealing. Thank you. Celebrate birthdays and special occasions. Acknowledge accomplishments in a public setting. Yeah, to a certain extent. Some people don't like that acknowledgement. I think we can make the workplace more appear better too. It can be spruced up a lot. It can be made more, you know, organic. It's just the way people's homes are. It's more comfortable at home because you're used to those surroundings. You pick that color and so forth. You go to a gray cubicle and it is not the same there. So what can we do? Let them have music. Let them put plants on their desks. Give the brain. I've just done a class on brain-based management. Let the brain be stimulated back at work, because employee engagement is the emotional commitment to the organization, and it means people are enthusiastic and committed and to their work and the workplace. So here's some statistics from, and this kind of speaks to some of the things you've been saying in your chat. The Harvard Business Review article that talked about flexibility and accountability. 61% of employees prefer to choose when they work from home or office. That's 61%. So in terms of engagement, there's that many people that would prefer to choose it rather than be told what to do. 59% said flexibility was more important than salary or work environment. And I have to tell you, I've heard this several times, there are a whole lot of organizations where people are not even applying for a job if it doesn't have a telework element to it. Do you have telework? No, not yet. Sorry, not interested. Don't even want to apply. And that's how we're going to attract younger people. How are we going to keep the government sector fully staffed? Everybody's suffering from not enough staff. We need to change. And accountability, 85% of leaders do not clearly define expectations, and an equal number of employees wish they would. So as a leader, you want to be real clear about your expectations and gain buy-in from them that they understand it and maybe add to it. Oh, I think maybe you probably want this too. Oh yeah, I would. So then they own it. And then give them some rope. Give them some rope to do it. I mean, why are we holding on so tight? Same here, the information is so useful. Yes, great information. Are we able to get the material presented in this training? Yes, you will. We're a lot more flexible with our staff. Yeah, just flexible. When you think about government, it's flexible doesn't come to mind, but boy, we've been forced into it, right? So there's this, this need for people to be autonomous and flexible, and then to get some clarity from it. So there's the blueprint. You're the leader, and you present the scaffolding, the expectations within which people can start working and growing and interacting and collaborating. And you're like the guide on the side. If you're a true leader, you're not sitting there working the same thing as they are, only higher level. You're watching, you're in charge of the people, not of the work. So autonomy really is the ability to direct our own lives. It's freedom, it's independence. It's one of our strongest motivators. Flexibility is you adapt to new changing requirements, and accountability is the willingness to account for one's actions. Very simple. So they go together. You can't be autonomous without some sort of accountability and collaboration with others. So here's another way of looking at it, and then we'll do a quick poll here. Desire for flexibility that people say they want actually translates to a desire for autonomy. So you can look it up and see that that's what they're asking for, really. Mandates or requirements go solidly against autonomy. They're more at control. So don't tell me what I can and cannot do. I know I've done this. Please trust me. Autonomy leads to greater job satisfaction, engagement. You feel like I count, I can do it, it's my business. I take ownership of my job. Those who don't will realize that they're missing out. Those who say, oh no, I'm just going to slack off if I can. They're missing out. Don't be around them. Proved by modeling autonomy works. Autonomy balanced again with collaboration and accountability. So this is why it's important to do it. It's not just you. It'd be nice to go ahead and let people do what they want to do. It's not just nice. It's a very good benefit to the satisfaction and engagement of people. So the levels of in a hybrid workplace, there's low autonomy and low flexibility. That's mandated to work in the office full time. Now, if you have to do it because of safety things, you've got the job that you have to do that stuff, and that probably is the satisfaction. So it doesn't feel like a mandate. I know this is my role. I'm a safety person. I'm in charge of public safety or health. And so, you don't have that, but you don't feel like it's mandated. Medium autonomy and medium flexibility, that means you can work both from home and the office, and the organization tells you which days to be in place. Medium and medium flexibility. Well, you can, but they tell you have to be in on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Medium autonomy and high flexibility is you're mandated to work remotely full-time, but you can choose where. So you can do it from Starbucks, you can do it from a library, and you can also come into the office and go into your office space or your hotel space, now they call it, or your, what do you call it, the round robin or the robin return, like that, and work from there if that makes sense to you. Sometimes people like that. And then high autonomy and high flexibility, I can work wherever, whenever, with full access to the office. So I can work when I work. I mean, this includes whenever and however, but I also can come into the office and have flexibility there. So let's do another poll real quick and see. Let me make sure there's anything. High autonomy requires high accountability results. Yeah, and you're going to want to share what you've done. So I'm on a team, it's a collaborative team, and I said, okay, I'm going to work on this. I have some great ideas. Let me go and work on them. I work on them, and then I say, okay, guys, what do you think? And you come back, and I don't just forget about it. I have a team. I have them counting on me to be accountable. Good leaders work for their employees, not the other way around. I like this. There's a great talk by Simon Sinek about how the difference between leaders and managers. And leaders don't, they have people in their charge. They're not in charge of people. Maybe unpopular opinion, but I think the remote work setup has negatively affected employee interactions. probably so. When giving large-scale trainings, I found people to behave almost like hecklers, as they're able to hide behind a screen, which they would never do in person. Okay, so that, Christy, that is people have less interaction with their colleagues, but I'm not sure it's because of technology. I think people are doing this anyway. There's people heckling on the radio, people heckling in the streets. Something has been let loose in this country, and somehow people have lost their civil dignity. The accountability in 85% of leaders still didn't say anything and were disappointed. Some necessary struggles within entail, yes. Okay, but Christine, good point. And that's why I asked people to put their cameras on. Not just that I want to make sure they're working, it's because we interact better, period. It's just, I've had much better trainings that way. And I don't mandate it, but I also acknowledge Alfred and whoever else has got their cameras on to say, thank you, you make my life, it's polite. Okay, there's Eric, Ashley, yay, Tammy, thank you, you guys. You know, now the rest of you know, you got your pictures. But that's important to me, and I was a trainer. Otherwise, I'm talking to black boxes, and that's not to do with how people operate. Okay, so we got to do a poll. I don't want to run out of time here on autonomy. And this is, of all these things, and I've got to repeat it in the poll, what do you think, just realistically, what do you think would be the best? I think I have this on the slide, that would work best for your organization or your team. Yes, there's some that, you know, it'd be nice if we could, but this would work better for our team. And take a hard look at this, because this is, again, part of the blueprint that you can look at going forward, saying, you know, I think we can manage doing it this way or that way. So go ahead and vote for the one that you think is, you have to think about this a second, that will work best for your team. It'll make it, you know, more operate the best. Okay, I'm going to give it another 5 or 6 seconds. You guys are storming in there. I love it. Engagement here. It's great. All right, I think we've got a lot. I know you have to think about it. I'm going to go to 100. All right, here they are. And I'm sorry if we didn't get to you didn't get to get it in, but I think we got a sense. So the mandate's lost. Medium autonomy, medium flexibility, work from both home and office. How's that go? Work from both home and office, but decide which days. Yeah, that might be the thing that floats to the top. Medium autonomy, mandated to work remotely, and then high autonomy, high flexibility also is showing well. So yeah, this is a useful thing to know when you are forming these ideas, when you're doing the planning of everything. I work in a public entity. We do not have cameras on our computers. We are and have been in office all through the pandemic. I'm sorry, Jessica. Unfortunately, autonomy and flexibility is very low. Oh, that's too bad. But it's an entity that you apparently have different values for that. I don't understand why people don't have cameras. The state should just give you some. Is my other, you know, I'm not too opinionated, but how could they ask you to work from home and not have the right equipment? I don't get it. Catherine, high autonomy and flexibility allow us to recruit exactly throughout the state instead of just the Sacramento area, which improves the candidate pool. Allows staff to live in more affordable areas. Absolutely, that's nothing I even thought of. You can recruit people from Virginia if you want, if it's remote. High autonomy is excellent, but excluding the wherever. Well, wherever they work is, what's wrong with that? I think you mean whenever. Wherever they work, it's high autonomy, high flexibility. Why can't they work from either home or Starbucks or the office? I think when you're maybe referring to whenever, which is I work best at 2 in the morning where no one can contact me. Okay, so that's, again, the benefits of working this way. I already said job satisfaction, higher productivity, engagement and ownership of the job. Outcomes are tied to the abilities. So if somebody is really good, HR is different in the need for in-person interaction. Some people want to move to the Midwest to work wherever. Oh, I see what you're saying. Some people want to live in a different state. Yeah, and I did some training for the county of Santa Clara, and they were very adamant that they wanted to keep teleworking because no one could afford to live in San Jose. People were commuting 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours every day, both ways. And so, no, they did not want to go back to the office. So the outcomes are tied to people's abilities. So if someone is able to say, look, I'm very good at this, I'm not so good at that. And then they show you the outcomes that are tied to their abilities. They are free to do that. Why sit there and put them in data input if they're a people person? People, okay, they have to live in California. Okay, I actually meant wherever in a location from someplace in California. California Constitution states that the most cases state employees must reside and work within the state with few exceptions, wherever, meaning public places where business needs focus. Okay. All right, so that has to be cleared up. That's just one of those planning and commitment things. And then if people are intrinsically motivated when they have autonomy, they do it because they want to and because it's job satisfaction, not for the money. So I can't do that because we don't have time. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. And that's where we are right now. If you have that leadership, if you can emerge as a leader and start thinking about how would I invent or reinvent what we're doing. I know there's a million reasons why you can't do this autonomy, and I'm beginning to hear that, you know, well, we can't do it because we can't. Government always tells you what you can't do. I'm just suggesting to take a look at your perspective and say, what could you do? You know, if you could do it, what could you do? What would work best for your people and your organization? We want to keep government vibrant. You know, I believe in government. I think we should keep it vibrant, and the health of the people mentally and physically is so important. And staff needs, you know, a pat on the back and opportunities to work as how they work best. So that's kind of a blueprint to have that happen. Some things will be hindered by, you know, resistance of regulations and things like that. Just know the changes and know how it goes. And if you have any ideas you want to initiate or put in place right now, let's hear them. Otherwise, you know, we've got 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left. We can actually do many things we always thought we couldn't do in the last few years. Absolutely, Nursey. Leadership should define what expectations from employees are and have the employees weigh in on them. I would add that. We learned that we can actually do many things. Okay, you said that. Yeah, so you've learned all this stuff. So any ideas you have that you could put into place going back to your offices or your work team right now, remotely or otherwise? What would stop you if you did? I'd love to set expectations for the new way of work. Okay, so do it and see how people, so Keeson says, I would like to set expectations for the new way of work, of how we do this hybrid thing or whatever it is. And yeah, and then say, what do you think? And bring people's ideas in. How would you alter this? Would this work for you? Ask questions, and find out. And I think that would really serve you well as a leader. So that's it, unless there's any other comments. We're done. I think Marissa has your own evaluation, so I won't do that. Okay, one more long one here, Tammy. I'm also a public agency, and our autonomy flexibility is limited. We have positions we can perform their jobs remotely, but others that can't. They worked around it, adjusted schedules, and did our best to be flexible in order to provide the best service. Some people worked out of their home and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so good. You are trying to do this. And yeah, expectations, you're quite welcome. Yeah, so, you know, try things, you know, just try them. You've got this opportunity, like I said, to make changes, do them now. Slide deck and recording. Okay, Marissa, oops. It went by me too fast.
That's
Thanks,
okay, Terry.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll do a quick sign off. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. Again, I'm going to post a link where you can find the slide deck and the recording of the webinar later this afternoon in the chat. So just be sure to hold on to that, okay? And I'll post it multiple times because I know the chat is going by quick, so I will do that.
Okay.
If you have any questions for Terry, you can reach out to her personally. But otherwise, everyone have a great day and thank you for joining us again. And thank you, Terry. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Tammy. Thank you all.
Yeah,
That's
definitely enjoyed it. Thank you.
good, Val. Thanks.
A lot.
Oh, you're putting it in a couple times. I might want to see that too. Okay. All right, go and be leadership people. Marissa, you still there? Could you send me that link that was in the chat?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just when you get a chance, forward me your slides in PDF form if you can.
Oh yeah, I thought you had. Okay, I will do.
Yeah, this is Keason. The link doesn't work. So if you don't mind send a PDF, I would appreciate it.
Keason, the link isn't I mean, the recording and the slide deck, they're not up yet. It will be up this afternoon.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. You guys have a wonderful week and go be leaders.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye.